Welcome to video 4, which is page 4 of the Unit 4 geometry test. On this page, you have question number 13, which is a bonus. This is bonus here. And this is a bonus worth 1 bonus point. And then I have question 14, which has an A and a B, which are both review questions. Part A is worth 1. And part B is worth 2. So this page is only out of 3 points, but you could have gotten 4 if you would have gotten the bonus correct as well. So let's take a look at this bonus question. It wants to know the Leaning Tower of Pisa is 56.84 meters long. That is the length that you see along the diagonal. That is the hypotenuse of the triangle on the right. And it shows you angle Y. And it also defines the height. It says in the 1990s, engineers restored the building so that angle Y changed from 5.5 to 3.9. 3.99 degrees to the nearest hundredth of a meter. How much did the restoration change the height of the Leaning Tower of Pisa? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the before the change, height. And then I'll look at the after the change height. And then I'll just find how much the tower has changed based on the differences in height. So if I wanted to find the height, so I have my angle Y, and it was 5.5 degrees. So for the before, Y is equal to 5.5 degrees. Okay, well, I know that this is my hypotenuse and this height is my adjacent. So it's an A and an H, which means I'm going to use the cosine. So the cosine of angle Y, in this case that is the cosine of 5.5, is equal to the adjacent, which is the height, I don't know, I'll call it H, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 56.84. And if I have to solve for h, I multiply both sides by 56.84, so the height is equal to 56.84 times the cosine of 5.5. And I can just type that into my calculator, and since it wants me to round to the nearest hundredth, I'll just keep 2 decimal points. So in this case, the height is 56.58 meters. That would have been the height before the restoration. It was 56.58 meters tall. Okay, now let's look at the after. So after the renovation, that angle changed to 3.99 degrees. So Y is now a new number. So I'm still going to do the same process. I'm going to do the cosine of the angle. Well, the angle is now 3.99. The adjacent, I still don't know. It's H. The hypotenuse is still 56.84. Now understand that this H is different than the previous H. This is the height after the renovation. So if I want to solve for this height, we do the same thing. We multiply both sides by 56.84. Multiply that by the cosine of 3.99. So the height after, rounded to 2 decimal places, is 56.70 meters. So before the renovation, it was 56.58 meters tall. After the renovation, it was 56.70 meters tall. So if I want to find out how it changed, I can just take the after and subtract the before. So 56.70, the after height, minus the previous height of 56.58, tells me that this, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, went up 0.12 meters of height. It went up 0.12 meters of height. All right. And finishing up, a couple of review problems. These are both dealing with, well, the first one's dealing with two parallel lines cut by a transversal. So if I look at the 48 and the 4x, these two angles are what we call corresponding. And corresponding angles, as you should know, are congruent. So that means 48 should equal 4x. Divide both sides by 4, and 12 should be your x value. And then in part B, I have two triangles that are of different sizes but the same shape. So using the angle-angle similarity, you can see that these two triangles are similar to one another. So that means their sides must be proportional. So if I list the sides of the first triangle, they are proportional. So I'll set up a nice little proportion down here. This first triangle, we have an 8, a 6, and a 7. And how do they match up? Well, if I look at where 8 is located, 8 falls between the A and the C. So A has a 2 mark, and C has 1 mark. So if I look over at the triangle to the right, between the 2 mark and the 1 mark, there is a Y. So 8 will go over top of Y. Okay, and now the next one is 6. So the 6 falls between A and B, which is the 2 mark and the 3 mark. So between the 2 mark and the 3 mark of the second triangle, I have a 4. So 6 will go over top of 4. And then obviously 7, which falls between the 3 mark and the 1 mark. 3 mark and 1 mark will go over top of X. All right, so in order to solve this proportion, I'm going to look at it as two different problems. First one I'm going to look at are just the first two fractions. So I'll do 8 over y is equal to 6 over 4. But remember, you need two fractions to solve a proportion. And now I'll cross multiply. 6 times y is 6y. 8 times 4 is 32. Divide by 6, and y is equal to 5.3. Now that is rounded to the nearest tenth, as it says in the directions. It says round to the nearest tenth if necessary. In order to find x, I'll take two other fractions here, so I'll use the 6 over 4 again. I like using 6 over 4 because there's no fraction in it. This will have to equal 7 over x. So cross multiply again. 6 times x is 6x. 4 times 7 is 28. Divide both sides by 6 and round to the nearest tenth. So you should get 4.7 for x. So the 12 in part A was worth 1 point. Y equals 5.3 and x equals 4.7 are your last 2 points. Hopefully you got something out of these videos. If you have any questions or would like to retake this assessment, please let me know. Thanks.